All right, here in lesson 2-3, we're going to be talking about solving more complex equations. Our learning targets say solve complex equations with variables on both sides and justify each step in the solution process, something we've done for the past couple of lessons. Now it says write and solve an equation to model a real world situation. Again, something we've worked on the last few days. So let's take a look. On the previous slide, you should have seen two sets of math tips. The first math tip was if an equation includes the product of a number and an expression in parentheses, you can simplify by applying the distributive property. That's A parentheses B plus C, which equals A times B plus A times C. I used the distributive property on one of the problems I worked yesterday in lesson 2-2. The other math tip that we have for this section says you can eliminate the fractions in an equation by multiplying both sides of the equation by the least common denominator of the fractions. This first section, which is 1 and 2, should take approximately 15 minutes. So I want you to go ahead, pause the video here, take 15 minutes to discuss this with your table mates, and then we'll come back together. All right, here I've now worked out the answers to questions 1 and 2, and you can see that I have worked through number 1. They actually did the work for me. I just had to recall which property I used. Now, we started out with the original equation, so we always want to see what changed from one line to the next. Well, I notice here we no longer have parentheses. Usually when we're dealing with parentheses, more than likely it's going to be the distributive property. Now, there are some rare occasions that it's not, but in most cases, if there was a number or a coefficient in front of the parentheses, it's usually the distributive property. Then we did some combining of our like terms. We did addition property because they added 2x to both sides. And then we added 6 to both sides. Then we came down to the division property. And finally, our solution. Now, for number 2, I didn't state all my properties and stuff because of the room, but I kind of wanted to show things you should have seen along the way. For instance, if I'd have subtracted the 3x and then turned around and subtracted the 8, I should have come down to 2x equals negative 11. And then when you divide by 2, you get negative 11 over 2, or negative 11 halves. Then, here in B, I used the distributive property to start. I did a subtraction property there, and then a division property. This one could simplify. This one simplified. If you wrote down 10/8, I would be okay with it, but more than likely, if it's like a multiple choice, you're going to see 5/4. Last, number 3. Remember it said multiply the equation, both sides, by the least common denominator. So when we do this here, we needed to multiply everything here by 15 and multiply everything in this one by 12. So I did that. Well, 2/3 times 15 is 10. And 1/5 times 15 is 3. And 4/5 times 15 is 12. So I multiplied through, got rid of the fraction. Then I did a subtraction property, a division property, and got my answer as 9/10, or 9 over 10. In D, I had a 4, a 6, and a 3, and a 4. I said, well, 12 goes into each one of those. So I did 3/4 times 12 is 9. 1/6 times 12 is 2. 2/3 times 12 is 8. And 1/4 times 12 is 3. Then I did 2 steps at once. I subtracted the 8a, and then I added the 2. So I got a on one side, because 9 minus 8 is 1, and I got 3 plus 2 is 5. On to your debriefing.